So I just will briefly address you with some prepared statements, and then I'll turn the time over to Ximena because I know you'd rather talk to her than you to me anytime. So just to start off, we've received a lot of requests from the community to comment on the resignation of the police officer who had originally arrested and detained Ximena. We first want to make it very clear that we support and respect our law enforcement. We think the majority of them do a great job, but we wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't look into this incident a little bit more. There's too many things that don't make sense about Ximena's arrest to just let it go. So to that end, with his resignation and some other information that we received, we've done an open records request. We hope to get more information out of the city of Dalton moving forward to see if there's a possibility that Ximena may be able to take advantage of something called the U visa based on what happened to her. But the bottom line is she should never have been arrested and she should never have been taken to Stewart. She should never be put in this situation because she was. We have to now figure out what happened, why it happened, and make sure it doesn't happen to other people going forward. So another thing that I wanted to do is address the false narrative that's being put out there by DHS and people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who are saying that Ximena and Jose and their family, they've been here for 15 years and they didn't bother to do anything to try and adjust their status, to try and get a visa or work permit or anything else. And because of that, they might as well be deported now. So this is false because there was nothing that Jose and Ximena could have done before now to get any type of lawful status. They tried. They met with attorneys. They reviewed their case, their options, whether it be through Jose's business, through the fact that he has U.S. citizen children. There was nothing that they could do to come out of the shadows and become official members of this country that they love. It just wasn't a possibility. And to give you another example of how broken our immigration system is and how much we need change, only now the immigration is trying to deport Jose and Ximena can they apply for work authorization. There was no way for them to do that before. But now, as defense to deportation, they can actually take steps to becoming permanent residents and getting work permit in the United States. But that's just an example of how things need to change, why we need immigration reform, and why we need permanent protection for dreamers. So President Trump has said in his first administration and in the second administration that he has something that he wants to do for all these dreamers. Well, Ximena is a dreamer. She doesn't have DACA because there's some arbitrary dates that she missed as far as arriving in the United States. But she was brought here at the age of 4, and she's been a person that's contributed to the community since day one. She's been a person who's loved in the community, her and her whole family, because of how they act, how they treat other people, how selfless they are, and how all they want to do is better the community and their families and themselves. Finally, I just wanted to clarify another thing that's, again, something that's thrown out there by this administration, and that is that Jose and Ximena are not criminals. They have broken no criminal laws in the United States. They should not be treated or talked about as if they were criminals. They're people who have a deep respect for the laws of this country and would do anything to be members of the society. And with that, I'll turn the time over first to my partner, Charles Cook, and then we'll hear from you.
First, I want to thank Dustin for his amazing work on this case. He just does a remarkable job with Ximena, and I want to thank her for her extraordinary courage. It takes a great deal of courage to do what she has done here. We went through the same thing 15 years ago with Jessica Colonna, for those of you who were around back then.
Yeah, I remember.
Jessica works for us. She's upstairs. I know she came down there. She's right in the back of the room right there. That's what a hero looks like. This is what a hero looks like. Here's what I'd like to address. Why are we putting people like Ximena and Jose in our prisons? Why are we holding them there? These jails are designed by every administration, not just the Trump administration, to force people to give up their rights in the United States, to just give up and go home. That's why they're detaining people who aren't threats to society, that are night flight risks. That's why Ximena got a very low bond, and Jose got a very low bond, because they're not flight risks. They're not going anywhere. They will show up when they're asked to show up. It's time for us as U.S. citizens to ask our government, particularly our congressmen and our senators, to fix this system. This is not just. We're here today because we saw things that were unjust, that hit our souls because they were so unjust. If they're that unjust, why aren't our senators and congressmen, Senators Warnock and others, Senator Ossoff, Marjorie Taylor Greene, why aren't they fixing the system? Perhaps because they all benefit from not fixing the system. And we as citizens have to stand up and demand that they fix it so families like Ximena's do not have to keep going through this horror again. And I want to turn time over to Ximena for her comments and for your questions. Just remember what she's been through, this horror, and her courage. Thank you, Ximena.
unjust, and it's not only my case, but millions of people are going through this in the United States, and still I met a lot of people that are going through tougher situations than me, and I think they deserve justice because they are not criminals like Dustin and his partner also mentioned. A lot of us are being treated as criminals, and still we're treated like we're the worst criminals ever, but we are not criminals. That place is made for us to be detained as we fix our legal status in the United States. Instead, we're treated like criminals, and they just pressure us into signing deportation or self-departure because they pressure us, and we don't get any information on our case unless you have an attorney.
Ximena, what was your reaction to the officer's resignation?
I think he needed to do what he needed to do. He knows why he did it, and I think, as from my standpoint, I don't hold a grudge against him. As a Christian, I think the Bible says forgive those who wrong you, and I forgive him, and there's nothing that I hold against him. I think the government needs to do what they need to do on his part and do what they need to do on my part, and that's how it has to be.
Have you
Ximena?
spoken with him?
I have not.
Ximena, Ximena, with Audrey Washington with Channel 2, can you talk a little bit about your immigration journey? What are you looking forward to? Your attorney mentioned the U visa. Another option is going through your immigration with your father. What do you hope for? When do you hope to finally become a U.S. citizen? What are your hopes as your
Free, no worry. I feel like there's a weight lifted off my shoulder, not having to live in fear anymore.
Ximena, para Univisión, me gustaría que nos explicaran, nos dieran un update de cómo está la situación legal en español para ti, cuál es tu proceso legal y qué piensas sobre la renuncia del policía que te arrestó.
Para mi proceso legal estoy esperando que pueda obtener la visa U. Eso no nada más me ayudaría a mí, pero ayudaría también a toda mi familia. Entonces eso es lo que yo estoy esperando y orando que pueda obtener esa visa. Y lo de policía, yo creo que él tuvo que hacer lo que él tenía que hacer, y lo que pase de aquí es con el gobierno y con él, y lo mío también.
Claro, me gustaría que tus abogados en español nos dieran una explicación de cómo está tu situación legal, si nos permiten, abogado Dustin. ¿En qué situación se encuentra el caso de Ximena? ¿Van a aplicar cuáles son las opciones que ella tiene ahora?
Sí, ahorita su caso está en pausa. Ella no va a tener audiencia lo más seguro hasta el año que viene, tal vez el 2027. Estamos viendo ahorita, haciendo la investigación en cuanto a lo que pasó con su arresto para ver si califica para una visa U. Pero también tenemos otras opciones como unir el caso de ella con el caso de su papá, quien va a estar aplicando para la cancelación de deportación. Y si él ganara su caso, sale siendo residente permanente, y ella también se une a este caso para tratar de sacar la residencia. Y el último recurso sería asilo político, pero eso es muy difícil, y eso es, no queremos tener que basarnos en eso, pero si esa es la única opción, eso es lo que nos espera.
Concretamente la visa U, porque fue víctima de un arresto injustificado.
Así es, estamos investigando. Ahorita tenemos algunas informaciones que nos hace pensar que tal vez ella fue objeto de un arresto que no fue justo. No tenemos respuesta final en cuanto a si ese es el caso, pero si ese fue el caso, entonces sí, tenemos que hablar con la ciudad de Dalton para ver si ellos nos ayudan a aplicar por eso. Y el hecho de que el policía ya resignó nos hace pensar que ya ha habido esas conversaciones entre el gobierno y él.
Esa era una de mis preguntas. ¿Usted cree que la renuncia del policía ayude en la situación del caso legal que va a enfrentar Ximena?
Ayuda, no necesariamente ayuda, pero nos da otro detalle que tenemos que darle seguimiento para ver qué es lo que quiere decir eso. Puede ser que eso ayuda a otros hispanos en ese condado, pero realmente, como dijo Ximena, no deseamos mal para ese policía. Puede ser que él hizo algo incorrecto honestamente, pero como abogados no estaríamos haciendo nuestro trabajo si le tomamos a su palabra y decimos que sí, fue justo.
Abogado, gracias a los reportajes que vieron en Stuart de Ximena y la foto del policía, se dieron a conocer que otros migrantes también se estaban quejando que él los arrestó. ¿Los han contactado a ustedes o tienen conocimiento de eso?
Tenemos un poco de conocimiento en cuanto a eso, estamos hablando con gente en la comunidad, sacando diario más detalles. Ya hicimos una pedida de récord de registros a la ciudad y ya nos contestaron diciendo que están juntando eso. Me imagino que nos van a querer cobrar un montón de dinero para darnos copia de todo, pero tenemos que hacer lo que tenemos que hacer para que haya justicia en este caso.
La forma en que Ximena fue detenida, aprehendida, arrestada y esposada, vemos imágenes de un oficial sumamente alto, tú pequeña de estatura, ¿te sentiste vulnerable y expuesta ante la fuerza de un policía de esa forma?
Sí, no nada más por su forma que es más alto, pero su...
¿Fue rudo contigo?
Sí, no fue profesional en cómo hablar conmigo y yo creo que como un policía debería de hablar a alguien profesionalmente.
Ximena, can you talk to me a little bit about that in English as well? Talk to me a little bit about how you felt
Yes.
While you faced that and while you were being arrested by that cop.
I just felt as if I was being kind of pressured. Also, I felt like he was very unprofessional with his words. I also felt like he was just very unprofessional with how he treated me.
What has this process been like for you and your family since you got home up until today? Because I know obviously you've been waiting for you to get home and for you to be able to spend some time with them. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, it kind of flips to a world. We now kind of live a little bit more in fear. Before we lived in fear, now a lot more because it's making people feel a little bit more entitled with everything going on in the government. People just feel like their feelings can be poured out, and because of that, we feel as if we're more like targets in our community, and we're scared to go out. We don't feel as comfortable as we used to before.
Is there a message that you would say to people in the community that might find themselves in a similar situation to you?
Yeah, I would tell them to be very careful, to know their rights, and just be extremely careful right now with how everything is.
Ximena, can you talk a little bit about the people inside the detention?
Things people wouldn't even imagine, and I just pray for a better system and a better America that can allow people to get legal status without having to go through the trauma they're going through in here.
Mr. Baxter and Mr. Cook, do we have an idea of like how Ximena and her father's case is different in the way that a lot of people do get detained and immediately deported, whereas they did get some sort of path or are kind of in the process of doing that?
That's a very interesting question. Their case in many ways is not different. The vast majority of cases are like this. People who are picked up for drug without a license, and this is not new under Trump, just so you know. This has been happening since Bill Clinton was around because of the law passed in 1996. So their case is pretty typical of most people. The folks that you see being deported right away typically have deportation orders, generally speaking, or they have criminal convictions that make them immediately deportable, or they've been here less than 2 years. Ximena and her dad are like 10 million other people that have been here for decades in the United States, that have long established ties to the community, that have rights to bond, that have rights to apply for relief only in removal proceedings. So in many ways, they're very typical of the folks that are being picked up by ICE right now.
Dustin, you spoke a little bit earlier in Spanish, and maybe you can answer this as well, but can you walk us through a little bit about why try to seek the U visa? Is it because of the way that she was detained in that moment? Can you talk to us about what that process looks like right now? Where could her case end up being heard, that type of thing, like a timeline?
Sure,
Or how her dad's case, how that
As well,
Okay,
like
yeah.
a conjunction.
So her case is a little bit different from her dad's and mine, so these questions. So her dad has U.S. citizen children. So because he's been here for more than 10 years, because he has U.S. citizen children who would suffer if he was deported, he's able to apply for something called cancellation of removal. Ximena is way too young to get married, and has no kids, so she needs a parent who's a U.S. citizen or permanent resident so that she can qualify for cancellation of removal as well. So where Jose has a clear path right now to at least presenting an application to be able to stay in the United States, Ximena's case may end up depending on his case, the success of his case. Because if he wins his case, he becomes a permanent resident. and then she would have that qualifying relative to then request cancellation or removal. As far as the U visa is concerned, yeah, so we have concerns based on a number of different things, how the arrest was carried out, what was put in the arrest report that obviously wasn't true, and some things that happened right afterward, resulting in his resignation about the legality of this stop and then arrest. So if we, through this investigation process and talking with the city of Dalton, if we come to understand that she was the victim of a false arrest, then that would qualify her for a U visa. And presumably, as part of understanding that they're somewhat involved with this, the city of Dalton would have somebody sign a U visa certificate that would allow her to apply for a U visa. Now, because she's under 21, that means her dad and mom would also fall under the U visa, so the whole family would get that benefit. They would have a work permit for many, many years while they're waiting for the U visa to be approved, because U visas are backlogged like 15 to 20 years right now. So in the meantime, they'd have work authorization, a social security number, a driver's license, and they would be, out of the shadows in the public.
En español, disculpa abogado, estamos en vivo ahora mismo en Noticias Univisión 34 Atlanta. ¿Podría resumir muy brevemente, nuevamente por favor en español, cuál es el paso a seguir y sobre todo cuánto tiempo esto podría dilatarse?
Sí, estamos investigando si podemos aplicar para la visa U. La visa U es una visa para personas que han sido víctimas de ciertos crímenes. Y dentro de esos crímenes están listados arresto falso o arresto injusto. Entonces estamos haciendo una investigación y nos hace pensar que algo ahí, por lo mismo de que el policía renunció y que había inconsistencias en el reporte de policía y lo que pasó con ella en el arresto. Si logramos conseguir comprobantes de que ella sí fue víctima en este caso de un arresto falso, ella sí va a poder aplicar para la visa U. Y vamos a tratar de hablar con la ciudad de Dalton y también con la policía para ver si ellos firman un certificado confirmando que fue víctima y sí ayudó en la investigación del caso. Si es así, no solamente Ximena, pero también su papá y su mamá estarían incluidos en la visa. Ahora, la cosa con la visa U es que la visa U está bien atrasada, como 15 a 20, si no más años de espera. Pero gracias a, una de las pocas cosas que hizo Biden durante su tiempo como presidente para los inmigrantes es, él empezó un programa donde la gente con visa U puede obtener un permiso de trabajo mientras está pendiente su visa U. Entonces, Ximena, su papá, su mamá, todos tendrían este permiso de trabajo mientras esperaban la visa. Y la otra cosa con la visa U es después de 3 años con la visa aprobada, se convierte en la residencia. Entonces, eso sería un buen fin a esta historia.
Ximena, me gustaría que me dijeras, tu vida se detuvo al momento de que entraste al centro de detención. ¿Qué has podido recuperar? ¿La universidad cómo va? ¿Cómo va tu vida actualmente?
Actualmente ha cambiado mucho. Ahora no puedo resumir mi vida como era antes. Como le estaba diciendo a otra reportera, que mi familia ahorita vive con poco miedo porque sentimos que mucha gente está muy enojada y tiene muchos sentimientos con la situación que se está viendo en Dalton. Y entonces yo antes tenía una vida muy social, yo iba al gimnasio, iba a correr, y ahora siento que no puedo hacer eso porque siento que soy un poco de alguien puede venir y decirme algo, o Dios no quiere algo me pase.
¿Y la universidad has podido retomarla? ¿Tus exámenes fueron recalendarizados?
Necesito hablar con el presidente de Dalton State College, pero ellos me habían dicho que cuando yo tuviera tiempo y estuviera relajada que podía hablar con ellos para retomar donde quede.
Can you repeat that in English, please?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So, like, have you been able to get back to your classes at Dalton? Like, have you been able to enjoy life, even though I know you said it's been, been hard?
I have not been able to enjoy life. Since I've gotten back, I haven't been out because I do live in fear now. So does my family. My life is completely different. My life was turned upside down. Like I mentioned, I used to run every single day, go to the gym, hang out with friends on a daily, and that's not something I can do anymore because I do think I am a target in my community for some people. And also, as for college, I have to speak to the president of Dalton State, and they will allow me to take my finals that I wasn't able to take because I got arrested. And I did have summer classes, but because of everything going on, I don't think I'm in the right headspace to start those summer classes. So I'll resume classes fall 2025.
Tengo una pregunta para el abogado Cook. Abogado Cook, durante muchos años hemos seguido su carrera como abogado de inmigración y especialmente abogados de jóvenes. El caso de Jessica Colotl causó un impacto enorme en esta comunidad. Yo fui una de las primeras reporteras que cubrió eso. Después usted tomó medidas legales para defender a aquellos estudiantes que no podían ir a las 5 universidades más prestigiosas del estado de Georgia. Ahora, a raíz del caso de Ximena, muchas personas nos han escrito a través de Prensa Atlanta Global si va a haber alguna medida a favor de estos estudiantes. ¿Está pensando usted en tomar alguna medida global para favorecer a estos estudiantes que son o que podrían eventualmente ser detenidos en las calles del estado?
La cosa con litigación en favor de estudiantes es que tiene un base en la ley. Hemos tenido muchas bases en la ley por las litigaciones que hemos tomado, por las demás que hemos hecho sobre los años. Ahorita las cosas son más difíciles. En la ley, en los cambios hechos por la legislatura aquí en Georgia, y en el Congreso de los Estados Unidos. Pero siempre estamos buscando para ayudar a los estudiantes porque son el futuro de los Estados Unidos. Sin ese futuro, sin esos estudiantes, no tenemos un futuro bueno. Entonces seguiremos luchando por ellos y tratando de obtener por ellos la salsa legal para que puedan gozar su vida y vivir su vida en los Estados Unidos.
Earlier you guys came out and said Ximena did nothing illegal, she did nothing wrong. What would you say to people who say driving without a license is a factor of crime?
Driving without a license is, in Georgia, a misdemeanor. It shouldn't put you in jail. It shouldn't deprive you of your livelihood. It shouldn't deprive you of your schooling. Anybody else in Georgia who was caught without a license would be given a ticket and would go up. She's got a great southern accent. I don't know if you noticed that or not. Because she grew up here. What is she supposed to do in Mexico? She is American in everything but that piece of paper. But only Congress can fix that. And so, when you have politicians that won't fix the problem, but love glorifying the victims of it, you have to wonder, why are we electing these people if they're not going to fix one of the biggest problems that they think we have? When in fact, this is not an unsolvable problem. This is really simple. It just requires some courage. I just wish we had politicians with courage.
And what's next now in your... Some discrepancies in the police report, you talk about some of those discrepancies.
Dustin would love to talk about it.
Yeah, so the biggest thing is, in the police report, the police officer attests that he saw the Dodge Ram pickup that Ximena was driving with the tag plate, or the tag license, or tag numbers, and he saw it make an illegal right turn, stopped the car. We know that's not true because it wasn't her car that made an illegal right turn. So, in other words, after he stopped her and detained her and arrested her, he then filled out the report with the facts that fit the narrative of the stop. So that's to us a concern, or at least a cause to look into this and see what really happened.
So you have to prove he acted criminally in this situation.
We don't have to prove that. That's not our job. We're not prosecutors, but we have to investigate to see if that was in fact the case, and then we represent Ximena to the best of our ability, and we go the route of looking for the UV. So it would be upon the DA or the city of Dalton to look for any type of charges related to that.
You touched on it a little bit earlier, but how does she qualify for the U visa, or how is that going to go about getting that?
Well, we're going to try. We're doing the investigation to see actually the facts surrounding the arrest, the events leading up to it, and if there's any patterns or practices that have been going on. If we can show that she was in fact the victim of an arrest that should never have occurred, or a false arrest, and we get the cooperation of the city of Dalton, then we can apply for a U visa as somebody the victim of a crime. So U visas are available to people who are victims of certain crimes, and there's a list, and false arrest is one of those crimes on the list. Now, I know, we're not saying that this for sure occurred. We're not alleging that this officer is out there arresting people falsely, but we wouldn't be doing our job if we weren't looking into this, because there are just some things that don't make sense there. And based on other things we've heard in the community, we're concerned that this may be something that's happening regularly.
With the specific officer, or
Possibly.
So where do things go now? Are you just going to continue building that case for that U visa?
Right, yeah, so we're waiting for the open records request to come back, and then once we get more information and do some more investigating and some more discussions with the city of Dalton, we'll see where that goes. But her immigration case has been moved from the rocket docket of detained individuals to just a regular docket, and because immigration courts are so backlogged, she probably won't have her next calendar hearing until sometime in 2026, 2027. This is kind of another point that we talk about. everybody can agree that if there are bad people in the United States that shouldn't be here, they should be deported. But right now, this administration is using all their resources to try and pick up people like Ximena and Jose, who are good people, and that's what that does, is it causes more of a backlog in the immigration court system, and it helps other people who are actually criminals evade the law, because these immigration officers are too busy transporting people for no license arrest from jail to jail across Georgia or across the United States. It's taking time that they could be using to actually make us safer by arresting people who are actual criminals.
Oh, I have a question for Ximena in Spanish. Hi, Ximena with MG News. I'm Alondra. What do you think comes next for you in the future?
Hopefully that U visa and finishing up my career. I'm planning on majoring in finance and economics with a minor in marketing. Hopefully getting married and helping people in the same situation as me.
Do you think that this situation has changed what you want to do in the future in the way that you view, obviously, life?
I think it did change the way I see life, what I want to do in the future. I would be lying if I said this has made me want to be a lawyer, or I would hate my job. But I would want to start an organization to help people in the same shoes that I'm in right now. I like numbers, so I could probably do good with an organization and help those people.
Okay.
Well, what does life look for you right now in the interim? You mentioned you're really not comfortable going out in public. What does your life look like until you get more finality here?
It looks like staying at home.
So yeah, he's in the same situation where he was detained before, he's no longer detained. So his case will be removed from that speedy docket to the regular court docket, and again, it's like 2026, 2027. His case file has been sent from Stewart to Atlanta, and he's not even in the system in Atlanta yet. So we don't have any idea when that calendar hearing will be set for, but given what we're seeing in other cases, I would say 2027 is probably a reasonable guess.
Can I ask you guys how many other cases you guys are dealing with currently that may be similar to Ximena's case and her family's case, and then also what keeps you guys fighting for families that are currently going through things like this?
Yeah, well, so thanks to Ximena, we have a lot more people that we're helping. We've always had a very strong removal defense practice, and we have a ton of clients that are just like Ximena and her dad. We're seeing an uptick in that since the election, just by virtue of people like them being arrested and then being bond eligible and then being able to fight their case in court. What keeps me going is this is why I got into immigration law. I want to work with individuals where I can actually try and make a difference in their life and represent people who can't help themselves, because this is a complicated legal system. Immigration law is probably the second most complicated area of law behind tax law. And